When my father declared that I was banned from my mother's 60th birthday celebration because I was too selfish and career-obsessed to appreciate family, he had no idea that I had just finalized the purchase of the majority stake in his failing restaurant empire 2 weeks earlier. The look of complete shock on his face when my sister's boyfriend walked up to me at the family gathering and said, "Hi, boss," in front of everyone was nothing compared to the revelation that would follow when I announced why I had really been too busy for family dinners lately. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Sarah Chen, and this story begins not with the dramatic confrontation at my mother's birthday party, but with the slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my family's restaurant business and my place within it. At 28, I had built what many would consider an impressive career in corporate finance, working as a senior analyst for Wellington Investment Group, one of the most prestigious investment firms on the West Coast. My specialty was restaurant and hospitality acquisitions, a field I had gravitated toward partly because of my deep understanding of the industry through growing up in my family's business. The Chen family had been synonymous with authentic Taiwanese cuisine in Sacramento for over 2 decades. My father, David Chen, had immigrated to California in the early 1990s with my mother, Linda, carrying nothing but traditional family recipes and an unwavering determination to succeed in America. What started as a single small restaurant called Golden Phoenix had grown into a chain of 6 locations throughout the Sacramento metropolitan area, each one carefully designed to provide an authentic dining experience that honored our Taiwanese heritage while appealing to the diverse California palate. Growing up in this environment had given me an intimate understanding of restaurant operations that most of my colleagues at Wellington could never match. I understood the complexities of supply chain management for specialty ingredients, the challenges of maintaining consistency across multiple locations, the delicate balance between authentic cuisine and local taste preferences, and the razor-thin profit margins that made restaurant ownership one of the most challenging businesses in America. This background had made me exceptionally valuable to Wellington, where I had successfully managed dozens of restaurant acquisition deals worth millions of dollars. However, despite my professional success and obvious expertise in the industry, my father had never shown any interest in my insights or suggestions regarding our family business. In his traditional worldview, the restaurant empire he had built was destined to pass to my older brother Michael, regardless of Michael's complete lack of interest in the food service industry or business management in general. Michael was 31 and worked as a graphic designer for a small advertising agency, spending his free time pursuing his passion for digital art and showing no inclination toward taking over the family restaurant. My younger sister Jessica, 25, had always been the family peacekeeper, working part-time as a hostess at the flagship Golden Phoenix location while pursuing her teaching credential. She had a natural gift for managing customer relations and seemed to genuinely enjoy the restaurant environment, but Dad had never considered her a potential successor either. In his mind, the business required male leadership, and my success in corporate finance was irrelevant to restaurant operations, despite the obvious connections between the two fields. This family dynamic had created years of frustration for me, watching from the sidelines as opportunities were missed and problems developed that could have been easily addressed with proper financial planning and strategic management. Every family gathering became an exercise in biting my tongue while Dad made decisions based on outdated information or failed to capitalize on market trends that were obvious to anyone with modern business training. The first signs that Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group was facing serious financial difficulties became apparent during the Christmas holidays last year. Dad had always been meticulous about maintaining the appearance of success, both in the restaurants and in our family life. The Chen family was known in our community for our generosity during holidays, regularly hosting elaborate celebrations and contributing to local charitable causes. When these traditions began to scale back significantly, I knew something was wrong. The subtle changes were initially easy to miss unless you were specifically looking for them. Family dinners moved from upscale restaurants to casual locations, and eventually to exclusively eating at our own establishment. Dad stopped talking about expansion plans that had been his constant topic of conversation for years. Most tellingly, he began declining social invitations and avoided discussing business with family friends who owned other restaurants in the area. My first concrete evidence that the restaurant group was struggling came through my professional network at Wellington. During a routine industry analysis meeting, my colleague mentioned hearing rumors about payment delays from Golden Phoenix to several major food suppliers. The restaurant industry in Sacramento was relatively small, and information about financial difficulties spread quickly among vendors and suppliers who had to protect themselves from potential losses. This revelation prompted me to begin a careful investigation of my family's business situation. Using my access to industry databases and financial information networks, I started building a picture of Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group's actual financial condition. What I discovered was far worse than I had feared and confirmed all of my long-standing concerns about Dad's management approach. The financial records I was able to access through legitimate industry channels revealed a company that was hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. All 6 restaurant locations were operating at losses, with only the original Golden Phoenix location maintaining even marginal profitability. The newer locations, which Dad had opened rapidly during the economic boom years without proper market analysis or financial planning, were struggling with high rent costs, inadequate customer volume, and operational inefficiencies that were draining resources from the profitable location. The most concerning discovery was the extent of the debt that Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group had accumulated. Dad had been financing expansion and covering operational losses through a combination of business loans, personal guarantees, and credit lines that now totaled nearly $2 million. The debt service alone was consuming most of the revenue from the profitable locations, leaving insufficient cash flow for proper maintenance, staff retention, or inventory management. The operational problems were equally serious and stemmed from Dad's reluctance to modernize business practices or implement systems that would improve efficiency and reduce costs. The restaurants were still using paper-based ordering and inventory systems that created opportunities for waste and theft. Staff scheduling was handled manually, resulting in both overstaffing during slow periods and understaffing during busy times. Most critically, there was no centralized purchasing or inventory management across the 6 locations, meaning that each restaurant was negotiating separately with suppliers and missing opportunities for volume discount. The competitive landscape had also shifted dramatically during the past 5 years in ways that Dad had failed to recognize or address. Sacramento's dining scene had become increasingly sophisticated, with new restaurants offering innovative Asian fusion concepts that appealed to younger customers while established competitors had updated their operations and marketing strategy. Golden Phoenix restaurants, with their traditional decor and unchanged menus, were beginning to seem outdated compared to more modern establishments. The most heartbreaking aspect of my investigation was discovering that several longtime employees had not received raises in over 3 years, and some had actually experienced reductions in hours as Dad tried to control labor costs. These were people who had worked for our family for decades, who had helped build the business during its growth years, and who deserved better treatment than they were receiving due to the financial pressures Dad was trying to manage alone. My analysis revealed that Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group was approximately 6 months away from bankruptcy if current trends continued. The debt payments were unsustainable, the operational losses were accelerating, and Dad's attempts to solve the problems through cost-cutting measures were actually making the situation worse by reducing service quality and employee morale. Without immediate intervention involving significant capital injection and comprehensive operational restructuring, the entire restaurant empire that my parents had spent their lives building would collapse within the year. The emotional impact of these discoveries was profound and complicated. On one hand, I felt vindicated in my long-standing concerns about Dad's management approach and his refusal to consider my suggestions for modernization and strategic planning. On the other hand, I was devastated to see my parents' life work in jeopardy and angry that Dad's pride had prevented him from seeking help before the situation became critical. The most frustrating aspect was knowing that these problems were entirely preventable and still solvable with the right approach. My experience at Wellington had shown me dozens of similar situations, where struggling restaurant groups had been successfully restructured and returned to profitability through strategic management and operational improvement. The solutions were well established and proven, but they required the kind of systematic approach and professional expertise that Dad had consistently rejected. I faced a critical decision about how to respond to this information. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The traditional approach would have been to confront Dad directly with my findings and try to convince him to accept my help in restructuring the business. However, my years of experience with his stubborn pride and resistance to outside input suggested that this approach would likely result in denial, anger, and his complete rejection of any assistance I might offer. Instead, I decided to develop a comprehensive acquisition strategy that would allow me to save the family business while preserving Dad's dignity and ensuring the security of our employees and loyal customers. This approach would require significant financial resources, careful legal structuring, and months of discreet preparation, but it offered the best chance of achieving a positive outcome for everyone involved. The first step in my acquisition strategy was assembling the financial resources necessary to purchase controlling interest in Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group, while providing sufficient working capital to implement the operational improvements that would restore profitability. My personal savings from my Wellington salary and bonuses provided a foundation, but the total investment required would exceed my individual resources significantly. Through my professional network at Wellington, I identified a group of investors who specialized in restaurant industry turnarounds and were willing to participate in the acquisition based on my analysis and restructuring plan. These investors had experience with similar situations and understood both the risks and the potential returns involved in restaurant group acquisition. Their participation would provide the financial backing I needed while ensuring that the restructuring would be conducted according to professional standards. The legal structure of the acquisition required careful planning to ensure that the transaction would achieve my objectives while protecting all parties involved. I worked with corporate attorneys who specialized in family business transactions to develop a structure that would allow me to gain operational control while providing Dad with financial security and the option to remain involved in the business in a consulting capacity. The acquisition plan included purchasing all outstanding debt obligations of Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group, which would immediately relieve the cash flow pressures that were strangling operations. Additionally, the plan provided for a substantial capital investment in restaurant renovations, equipment upgrades, and technology implementation that would modernize operations and improve customer experience across all locations. The most delicate aspect of the acquisition planning was determining how to handle the family relationships and emotional dynamics involved in taking control of my parents' life. I needed to structure the transaction in a way that would preserve family harmony while ensuring that I had the authority necessary to implement the changes required for business success. The operational restructuring plan I developed drew on best practices from successful restaurant turnarounds I had analyzed at Wellington. The plan focused on three primary areas: financial management improvements, operational efficiency optimization, and market positioning enhancement. Each area required systematic changes that would address the fundamental problems, while building on the strengths that had made Golden Phoenix successful in its early years. Financial management improvements included implementation of modern point-of-sale systems that would provide real-time data on sales, inventory, and labor costs across all locations. Centralized purchasing would reduce food costs through volume discounts while ensuring consistency in quality and availability. Professional-grade accounting systems would provide accurate financial reporting and enable data-driven decision-making about menu pricing, location performance, and investment priority. Operational efficiency optimization involved redesigning workflows in each kitchen to reduce preparation time and minimize waste, implementing standardized recipes and portion controls to ensure consistency while managing cost, and developing employee training programs that would improve service quality while creating advancement opportunities for longtime staff members. Market positioning enhancement required updating restaurant decor and ambiance to appeal to contemporary tastes while maintaining the authentic Taiwanese character that differentiated Golden Phoenix from competitors. Menu development would add innovative dishes that appealed to younger customers while preserving the traditional favorites that had built our loyal customer base. Marketing strategies would emphasize our family heritage and commitment to authentic cuisine while showcasing the modern improvements and expanded offering. The timeline for implementing these changes required careful coordination to ensure that operations could continue normally while improvements were being made. I developed a phased approach that would begin with the most critical financial stabilization measures, followed by operational improvements at each location, and culminating with the market repositioning and expansion strategies that would drive long-term growth. During the months of preparation leading up to the acquisition, I had to maintain normal family relationships while secretly working on the most important project of my professional career. This required exceptional emotional discipline and careful time management to ensure that my family would not suspect the scope of my activities until I was ready to reveal the complete plan. The most challenging aspect of this preparation period was attending family dinners and social gatherings where Dad would make increasingly concerning comments about business challenges while refusing to discuss specific problems or accept any suggestions for improvement. I had to listen to his frustrations and concerns while knowing that I was actively working on solutions he would never have imagined. My relationship with Jessica became particularly important during this period, as she was the family member most likely to notice changes in my behavior or schedule. I needed to maintain our close sisterly bond while keeping her unaware of my acquisition plans until the appropriate time for revelation. This balance required careful attention to our conversations and activities to ensure that I was providing emotional support without revealing information that might accidentally reach Dad before I was ready. The preparation phase also required building relationships with key Golden Phoenix employees who would be essential for successful implementation of the operational improvement. I began visiting the restaurants more frequently as a customer, using these opportunities to observe operations and identify staff members whose expertise and loyalty would be valuable during the transition period. The most significant personnel decision involved quietly recruiting Thomas Liu, who had been the head chef at the original Golden Phoenix location for over 15 years, to serve as culinary director for the restructured restaurant group. Thomas understood both the traditional recipes that were central to our identity and the operational challenges that were hampering efficiency. His willingness to participate in the restructuring plan provided crucial validation that longtime employees would support the changes I was planning. The acquisition timeline accelerated when I learned through industry sources that several of Golden Phoenix's major suppliers were considering requiring cash payments instead of extending credit terms. This development would have created an immediate crisis that could have forced bankruptcy before my acquisition plan could be implemented. I had to move quickly to finalize the financial arrangements and legal documentation necessary to complete the transaction. The final weeks before the acquisition were the most stressful period of my entire career, requiring me to coordinate complex financial transactions while maintaining my regular responsibilities at Wellington and normal family relationships. The emotional pressure of working to save my family's business while keeping my efforts secret from the people I was trying to help was almost overwhelming at times. The breakthrough moment came when my legal team confirmed that all acquisition documents were complete and the investor financing was approved. I now had the resources and authority necessary to take control of Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group and begin implementing the restructuring plan that would save the business and preserve my parents' legacy. The timing of the final acquisition paperwork coincided with Mom's 60th birthday celebration, an event that Dad had been planning for months despite the financial pressures he was facing. His decision to ban me from the party because of my supposed neglect of family responsibilities provided the perfect opportunity to reveal the true reason for my recent busy schedule and demonstrate my actual commitment to our family's future. The irony of Dad's accusation that I was too selfish and career-obsessed to appreciate family was not lost on me, given that I had spent months working to save the family business he had built. His complete misunderstanding of my priorities and motivations reflected the communication gap that had existed between us for years, but which would finally be addressed through the revelation that was about to unfold. The stage was set for a confrontation that would transform our family dynamics forever and prove that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is take action that others cannot or will not take themselves. The months of careful preparation and strategic planning were about to be tested in the most public and emotionally charged setting possible, but I was confident that the evidence of my commitment and the strength of my restructuring plan would speak for themselves. The morning of Mom's birthday party arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that makes Sacramento beautiful, but I felt none of the seasonal joy as I prepared for what would either be the most successful intervention of my career or a complete disaster that would destroy my family relationships forever. The acquisition documents were safely secured in my briefcase, the investor agreements were finalized, and the operational restructuring plan was ready for immediate implementation. All that remained was navigating the emotional minefield of revealing to my family that their dutiful daughter had secretly become their business savior. Dad had made his position clear during our phone conversation 3 days earlier when he officially uninvited me from the celebration. His voice carried the particular tone of disappointment and frustration that I had learned to recognize over the years, the same tone he used when discussing employees who failed to meet his expectations, or customers who complained about service issues he felt were unwarranted. "Sarah, I think it would be better if you didn't come to your mother's party this weekend," he had said, his words carefully measured in the way that indicated he had rehearsed this conversation multiple times. "Your mother and I have been talking, and we feel that you've become too focused on your career to really appreciate what family means. Every time we invite you to dinner, you're either working late or you have some client meeting. Even when you do show up, you spend half the time checking your phone or talking about some business deal." The accusation stung precisely because it contained enough truth to make me question my own motivations, even though I knew the full context that Dad lacked. I had been working extraordinary hours during the past few months, but not on random client deals or career advancement. Every late night and weekend work session had been dedicated to analyzing Golden Phoenix's financial situation, developing restructuring strategies, and coordinating with investors and legal advisors who could help me save the family business. "I understand that your job is important," Dad had continued, his voice growing more strained as he worked through his prepared speech. "Your mother and I are proud of what you've accomplished at that investment company, but success in business shouldn't come at the expense of family relationships. Mom's 60th birthday is a milestone that requires celebrating with people who will be fully present and engaged, not distracted by work concerns." The irony was so profound that I almost broke my commitment to maintaining secrecy about the acquisition plan. Here was my father, whose own obsessive dedication to restaurant operations had shaped our entire family dynamic for decades, criticizing me for working too hard. The man who had missed countless school events, family vacations, and social gatherings because of restaurant emergencies was now lecturing me about work-life balance. More frustratingly, Dad's perception of my recent behavior was entirely wrong in its interpretation while being accurate in its observations. I had been distracted during family dinners, but not because I was prioritizing external clients over family relationships. I had been mentally wrestling with the devastating financial information I had discovered about Golden Phoenix, trying to develop solutions while maintaining the emotional composure necessary to avoid alerting my parents to the crisis they were facing. The phone calls and text messages that Dad interpreted as signs of my career obsession had actually been communications with restaurant industry experts, financial advisors, and potential investors who were helping me structure the acquisition that would save our family's legacy. The weekend work sessions he resented were spent reviewing financial projections and operational improvement plans that would preserve the jobs of employees he cared about while ensuring that my parents could retire with dignity rather than bankruptcy. Jessica had called me the evening after Dad's disinvitation, her voice carrying the diplomatic tone she always used when trying to mediate family conflict. "Sarah, I think Dad is just stressed about the restaurant business and he's taking it out on you unfairly," she said, clearly trying to provide comfort while avoiding taking sides in the dispute. "You know how he gets when he's worried about money. He starts seeing problems everywhere and blaming people for things that aren't really their fault." Her comment about Dad being worried about money was more perceptive than she realized, and it confirmed that the financial problems at Golden Phoenix were becoming apparent even to family members who weren't directly involved in business operations. Jessica's position as a part-time hostess at the flagship location gave her insights into customer traffic patterns and employee morale that she probably didn't recognize as indicators of larger business problems. "Mom really wants you to be there," Jessica continued, her voice taking on the pleading quality she had perfected during childhood when trying to convince our parents to let us do something they had initially forbidden. "She's been planning this party for months, and she keeps asking me if I think you'll really stay away. I told her that family is too important to you to miss something this significant, but now I'm worried that you might actually listen to Dad and not show up. The complexity of the situation was that both Dad and Jessica were right about the importance of family, but they completely misunderstood my motivations and priorities. Dad saw my recent behavior as evidence that I had been corrupted by corporate culture and no longer valued family relationships appropriately. Jessica recognized that I was under unusual pressure, but attributed it to generic work stress rather than understanding that I was actually working to protect our family's future. The decision to attend the party despite Dad's ban was not made out of defiance or stubbornness, but rather because the celebration provided the perfect opportunity to reveal the acquisition in a way that would demonstrate my true priorities while surrounded by the extended family and friends who would witness Dad's reaction. The symbolic power of announcing that I had saved our family business during a celebration of Mom's milestone birthday would create a narrative that emphasized love and commitment rather than business maneuvering. The party was being held at the Riverside Community Center, a venue that our family had used for celebrations for over a decade. Mom had chosen this location because it provided space for the large guest list that included relatives, family friends, longtime restaurant customers, and current and former Golden Phoenix employees. The setting would ensure that my revelation about the acquisition would reach the entire network of people who mattered to our family and business community. I arrived at the community center 30 minutes after the official start time, calculating that this delay would ensure maximum attendance, while avoiding the early arrival period when Dad might have an opportunity to create a scene about my unwelcome presence. The parking lot was nearly full, indicating that Mom's celebration was well attended and creating the audience that would witness the transformation of our family dynamic. The community center's main hall had been decorated with elegant burgundy and gold streamers that reflected Mom's favorite colors, and round tables were arranged to encourage conversation among the diverse group of guests. A professional photographer was moving through the crowd, capturing candid moments and group photos that would preserve the memory of this pivotal celebration. The atmosphere was festive and warm, exactly the kind of gathering that Mom loved and had been looking forward to for months. My entrance created an immediate ripple of attention among the guests who were aware of the family tension surrounding my invitation status. Several longtime family friends approached me with expressions of surprise and delight, clearly pleased that I had chosen to attend despite whatever conflict had initially kept me away. Their warm greetings and genuine affection reinforced my conviction that attending had been the right decision, regardless of Dad's reaction. Mom spotted me within minutes of my arrival, and her face lit up with the kind of joy that made all the stress and complexity of the past few months worthwhile. She was wearing the emerald green dress that Dad had bought her for their anniversary 2 years earlier, and her happiness at seeing me was so genuine and overwhelming that several nearby guests stopped their conversations to watch our reunion. "Sarah, I'm so happy you decided to come," she said, embracing me with the fierce intensity of someone who had been genuinely worried that her daughter would miss this important milestone. "I know there's been some tension with your father, but family celebrations are when we put aside our differences and focus on what matters most." Her comment about putting aside differences carried additional weight given the revelation that was coming, but Mom had no way of knowing that the differences she referenced would soon be resolved in ways no one could have anticipated. Her focus on what matters most was about to be validated in the most dramatic way possible. Dad's reaction to my presence was immediate and intense, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and frustration as he processed the fact that I had chosen to attend despite his explicit instruction to stay away. He was dressed in his best navy suit, the one he reserved for the most important occasions, and his carefully groomed appearance reflected the significance he placed on Mom's celebration. "Sarah, I thought we discussed this," he said, approaching me with the controlled demeanor of someone trying to manage a difficult situation in public. "This is your mother's special day, and I don't want family disagreements to overshadow her celebration." The irony of his concern about family disagreements overshadowing the celebration was not lost on me, given that my planned revelation would transform potential conflict into family unity and shared success. Dad's protective instincts toward Mom's happiness were admirable, but his understanding of what would actually serve her best interests was about to be dramatically updated. "I wouldn't miss Mom's 60th birthday for anything," I replied, maintaining the calm composure that I had practiced for exactly this type of confrontation. "Family celebrations are indeed the most important occasions, and I have something very special to share that will make this day even more memorable for everyone. My reference to having something special to share clearly heightened Dad's anxiety, as he probably interpreted it as a sign that I was planning to create some kind of scene or announcement that would disrupt the careful atmosphere he had worked to create for Mom's celebration. His protective instincts were activating in response to a threat he couldn't identify but sensed was approaching. The first hour of the party proceeded with the careful choreography of a family gathering where everyone was aware of underlying tensions, but committed to maintaining social harmony for the sake of the guest of honor. I moved through the crowd, reconnecting with relatives I hadn't seen in months and catching up with family friends who were eager to hear about my career success at Wellington. These conversations provided valuable insights into how our extended community perceived both my professional achievements and the Golden Phoenix restaurant business. Several guests mentioned having eaten at our restaurants recently and commented on everything from food quality to service efficiency, giving me real-time feedback about customer experience that would be valuable for the operational improvements I was planning to implement. The most significant conversation during this initial period was with my Aunt Helen, Mom's older sister, who had always been particularly perceptive about family dynamics and business matters. Helen had worked in retail management for 30 years before retiring, and her experience with customer service and operational efficiency gave her insights that most family members lack. "Sarah, I have to tell you that I'm concerned about your parents," Helen said, drawing me aside to a quieter corner of the room where we could speak more privately. "I've been to Golden Phoenix several times recently, and something seems different. The service isn't quite as sharp as it used to be, and your father seems stressed whenever I see him at the restaurant. I know it's not my business, but I worry that they're facing challenges they're not talking about." Helen's observations confirmed that the operational problems at Golden Phoenix were becoming visible to perceptive customers, which meant that the restaurant's reputation and customer loyalty were beginning to suffer from the financial pressures and management inefficiencies that I had identified through my investigation. Her concern also indicated that family members were noticing Dad's stress level, even if they didn't understand the underlying cause. "I appreciate your concern about Mom and Dad," I replied carefully, recognizing that Helen's insights could be valuable while avoiding revealing information that would spoil the surprise I had planned. Family businesses face unique challenges, especially in the restaurant industry, but I think you'll find that some positive changes are coming that will address the issues you've noticed. My cryptic response clearly intrigued Helen, whose business background made her sensitive to the kind of careful language that people use when they possess information they cannot yet share publicly. Her expression suggested that she suspected I knew more about the family business situation than I was revealing, but she respected my need for discretion. The turning point of the evening began when I noticed Thomas Liu, the head chef from the original Golden Phoenix location, arriving with his family. Thomas had been invited to the celebration because of his long history with our restaurant and his relationship with my parents, but his presence also represented the beginning of my planned revelation about the acquisition and restructure. Thomas had been instrumental in developing the operational improvement plan that would be implemented across all Golden Phoenix locations, and his enthusiastic support for the restructuring had given me confidence that long-time employees would embrace the changes rather than resist them. His expertise in traditional Taiwanese cooking techniques and his understanding of American customer preferences made him the ideal person to lead the culinary modernization that would enhance our menu offerings while preserving our authentic identity. The second key arrival was David Park, Jessica's boyfriend of 8 months, who had recently started working as a shift supervisor at 2 of our newer Golden Phoenix locations. David was 27 years old with a background in hospitality management and a genuine enthusiasm for restaurant operations that had impressed both Jessica and me during the few times we had met socially. What neither Jessica nor my parents knew was that David's employment at Golden Phoenix was not the coincidence it appeared to be. During my months of preparation for the acquisition, I had identified him as someone with the management potential and operational expertise that would be essential for successful restructuring. When a supervisor position became available, I had quietly recommended him to the hiring manager while ensuring that his application would be evaluated purely on its merits. David's performance during his first few months at Golden Phoenix had exceeded even my optimistic expectations. His systematic approach to staff management, customer service, and operational efficiency aligned perfectly with the modernization goals I had included in the restructuring plan. More importantly, his respectful attitude toward longtime employees and his genuine appreciation for our family's culinary traditions made him an ideal candidate for expanded responsibilities in the restructured organization. The complexity of David's situation was that he was unaware of my role in his hiring or my plans for the business restructuring. From his perspective, he was simply Jessica's boyfriend, who had been fortunate enough to find employment with her family's restaurant group. The revelation of my true relationship to his employment would be almost as shocking to him as it would be to the rest of my family. Jessica had been particularly happy about David's success at Golden Phoenix, interpreting his rapid advancement and positive feedback from management as validation of her good judgment in choosing a boyfriend with strong work ethic and professional capability. She had frequently mentioned to me how proud she was that he was making such a good impression on Dad, and how relieved she was that her romantic relationship was strengthening rather than complicating her position within the family business. The moment that would transform the entire evening began when David approached me near the refreshment table where I had been observing the party dynamics while mentally rehearsing the announcement I would soon make. His expression carried the professional courtesy that he had learned to use when interacting with family members of the restaurant owners, but also the genuine warmth that had made him so successful in customer service role. "Hi, boss," David said with a smile, extending his hand for a handshake that he clearly intended as a gesture of respect and gratitude for the employment opportunity he believed I had helped facilitate through family connection. The simple greeting created an immediate silence among the nearby guests who heard it, followed by a ripple of confusion that spread outward as people tried to process what David had just said and what it might mean. Jessica, who had been standing a few feet away chatting with our cousin Maria, turned toward us with an expression of complete bewilderment. "What did you just say?" Jessica asked, her voice carrying the kind of uncertainty that indicated she was hoping she had misheard something that didn't make sense within her understanding of the family and business relationship. David's face immediately registered alarm as he realized that his casual greeting had created some kind of misunderstanding or revealed information that was supposed to remain private. His experience in customer service had taught him to recognize when a situation was developing that required careful management, but he clearly had no idea what he had said wrong or how to correct it. "I'm sorry, I thought," David began, looking back and forth between Jessica and me as he tried to understand the source of the confusion and determine how to respond appropriately. The growing circle of attention around our conversation included several family members and longtime Golden Phoenix employees who were trying to understand why David would refer to me as his boss when everyone knew that Dad was the owner and operator of the restaurant group. The silence stretched as people waited for an explanation that would make sense of what they had just witnessed. Dad appeared at the edge of the group, drawn by the unusual silence and the obvious tension that had developed around our conversation. His face showed the kind of alert concern that he displayed when dealing with potential problems at the restaurants, but also the confusion of someone who was missing crucial information about a situation involving his own family. "What's going on here?" Dad asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to taking charge of difficult situations. "Why does everyone look like something's wrong?" The moment had arrived when all of my months of preparation, strategic planning, and emotional discipline would be tested in the most public and consequential way possible. The acquisition documents were in my briefcase, the investor agreements were finalized, and the operational restructuring plan was ready for immediate implementation. All that remained was finding the right words to explain to my family and their guests that their understanding of our business and my role within it was about to change forever. Jessica looked at me with an expression that combined confusion, concern, and growing suspicion that something significant was happening that she didn't understand. Dad's face showed the kind of intense focus that he brought to solving problems, but also the underlying anxiety of someone who sensed that the problem might be larger than he was prepared to handle. "Sarah," Jessica said quietly, her voice carrying the kind of careful control that indicated she was trying to manage her own emotions while seeking information that would help her understand the situation. "Why would David call you his boss? What does that mean?" The question hung in the air as the circle of listeners grew larger, including Mom, who had been drawn over by the unusual gathering and the obvious tension among her family members. Her expression showed concern for the family harmony she had been enjoying throughout the evening, but also curiosity about what had created this unexpected moment of drama during her celebration. "I think it's time for me to share the surprise I mentioned earlier," I said, recognizing that the moment for revelation had arrived and that any attempt to delay or deflect would only increase the confusion and anxiety that was already building among the guests. The word surprise created immediate heightened attention among the family members and friends who were close enough to hear our conversation. Birthday celebrations often included surprises, but the context and timing of this particular announcement clearly indicated that something more significant than a typical gift or tribute was about to be revealed. "Perhaps we should move somewhere more private for this conversation," Dad suggested, his instincts telling him that whatever information I was about to share might be better discussed away from the larger group of guests and employees who were now watching our family interaction with obvious interest. "Actually, I think this is exactly the right time and place for this announcement," I replied, recognizing that the public setting would serve my strategic objectives while ensuring that the entire community that mattered to our family would witness the revelation simultaneously. "What I have to share celebrates both Mom's milestone birthday and our family's future together." The reference to our family's future together created visible relief on Mom's face, as she had clearly been worried that the tension she was observing indicated some kind of serious family conflict that might overshadow her celebration. Her expression showed hope that whatever surprise I had planned would resolve the confusion and restore the positive atmosphere she wanted for her special day. I opened my briefcase and withdrew the leather portfolio that contained the acquisition documents, settlement agreements, and operational restructuring plans that represented months of careful preparation and strategic planning. The professional appearance of the documents immediately signaled to the business-oriented members of our audience that this was not a casual announcement, but rather something involving serious legal and financial consideration. 3 weeks ago, I completed the acquisition of controlling interest in Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group, I announced, my voice carrying the calm authority that I had developed through years of presenting complex business information to sophisticated audience. "I am now the majority owner of our family's restaurant business, and David is one of several managers who will be implementing comprehensive operational improvements designed to ensure the long-term success and profitability of all 6 locations." The silence that followed this announcement was profound and complete, as if every person within hearing range was taking time to process information that completely contradicted their understanding of our family and business relationship. The silence stretched for what felt like several minutes, but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds before the first reactions began to emerge. Dad's face cycled through multiple expressions as he tried to understand what I had just announced and what it meant for his role as the founder and operator of Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group. His initial shock gave way to confusion, then to what appeared to be anger before settling into the kind of intense focus that he brought to analyzing complex problems that required immediate attention. "What exactly are you saying?" Dad asked, his voice carrying a strained quality that indicated he was struggling to maintain composure while processing information that challenged everything he thought he knew about our family's business situation. "I'm saying that I have purchased the business that you and Mom built, along with all of its assets and obligations," I replied, maintaining the clear and direct communication style that I had learned was most effective during difficult business conversations. "The acquisition includes immediate capital injection to resolve outstanding debt obligations, comprehensive operational restructuring to improve efficiency and profitability, and strategic planning to ensure sustainable growth and competitive positioning." The business terminology I was using clearly signaled to Dad that this was not an emotional family gesture but rather a sophisticated financial transaction that had been planned and executed according to professional standards. His experience with business operations gave him the knowledge necessary to understand the implications of what I was describing, even if he couldn't yet process the emotional and relational aspects of the situation. Jessica's reaction was different from Dad's, reflecting her position as someone who was emotionally invested in family harmony but less concerned with the business implications of the announcement. Her face showed hurt and confusion that she had been excluded from such a significant family decision, but also growing understanding that my recent behavior and schedule had been related to this acquisition, rather than generic career obsession. "Why didn't you tell us what you were planning?" Jessica asked, her voice carrying the kind of wounded tone that indicated she felt betrayed by my secrecy rather than supported by my efforts to help the family. "Because Dad would have refused to accept help if he had known it was coming," I replied, recognizing that honesty about my strategic reasoning was necessary to maintain family trust moving forward. The business was facing bankruptcy within 6 months, and traditional approaches to requesting family cooperation would have resulted in denial and delay that we couldn't afford. The reference to bankruptcy created immediate visible shock among the longtime employees and family friends who were hearing this information for the first time. Several people who had worked at Golden Phoenix for years looked at each other with expressions that suggested they had suspected financial problems but hadn't realized the situation was critical. Mom's reaction was perhaps the most complex, as she was simultaneously processing the information that her daughter had taken extraordinary action to save the family business, and the realization that the business had been in much more serious trouble than she had understood. Her face showed pride in my capabilities and initiative, but also concern about the family dynamics that had led to such a dramatic intervention being necessary. "Sarah, I had no idea that you were even aware of our business challenges, let alone that you were working to address them," Mom's. Her voice carrying gratitude, but also the kind of confusion that indicated she was struggling to understand how such a significant family situation had developed without her knowledge. "I've been monitoring the restaurant industry in Sacramento through my work at Wellington," I explained, recognizing that Mom deserved to understand both my motivations and my capability. "When I discovered that Golden Phoenix was facing serious financial difficulties, I used my professional expertise and resources to develop a solution that would preserve Dad's legacy while ensuring the security of our employees and loyal customers." The mention of employee security created visible relief among the Golden Phoenix staff members who were attending the celebration. Several longtime employees, who had been concerned about recent changes in scheduling and benefits, looked at each other with expressions that suggested they were beginning to understand that their job stability had been protected through my intervention. Thomas Liu stepped forward from the group of employees, his expression showing the kind of professional respect that he had developed through years of working in challenging restaurant environments. "Sarah, does this mean that the operational improvements we've been discussing will be implemented across all locations?" he asked, his question revealing to my family that I had been working with their key employees on business planning that they knew nothing about. "Yes, Thomas," I replied, grateful for his support and the opportunity to demonstrate that longtime employees had been involved in the planning process. "The restructuring plan includes technology upgrades, equipment improvements, staff development programs, and menu expansion that will enhance our competitive position while honoring the traditional recipes and service standards that have made Golden Phoenix successful." Dad's expression during this exchange showed the kind of stunned realization that comes from discovering that major decisions affecting your life's work have been made by people you trusted but apparently didn't understand as well as you thought. His shock was giving way to what appeared to be anger, but also to a growing recognition that the situation I was describing addressed problems he had been struggling with unsuccessfully for months. "How could you make decisions about my business without consulting me?" Dad asked, his voice carrying the kind of controlled intensity that indicated he was working hard to manage his emotions in the public setting. "This restaurant group represents 30 years of my life's work, and you've taken it over like some kind of corporate acquisition." "Because it is a corporate acquisition," I replied, recognizing that clarity about the business nature of the transaction was necessary to establish the framework for our future relationship. Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group was a failing business that required immediate professional intervention to avoid bankruptcy. I used my expertise and resources to save the company, preserve the jobs of 37 employees, and protect the investment that you and Mom have made in building this enterprise. The mention of 37 employees created immediate
immediate attention among the guests, many of whom had not realized the scope of employment that Golden Phoenix provided within our community. The number also demonstrated to Dad that I possessed detailed knowledge about the business operations and their impact on people whose livelihoods depended on the restaurant group's success.
David, who had inadvertently triggered this entire revelation through his casual greeting, looked completely overwhelmed by the discovery that his girlfriend's sister was actually his ultimate supervisor and that his employment had been part of a complex family business transaction that no one had explained to him. His expression showed the kind of confusion that comes from realizing that your understanding of a situation has been completely wrong. Sarah, I need to understand exactly what my role is supposed to be going forward, David said, his question reflecting both professional concern about his employment status and personal anxiety about how this revelation would affect his relationship with Jessica. Your role is exactly what it has been, David, except that now you'll have the resources and support necessary to implement the improvements you've been suggesting, hoping to reassure him while demonstrating to my family that I had been working with competent people who shared our commitment to excellence. The operational restructuring plan includes expanding your responsibilities and providing additional training and development opportunities for all supervisory staff. Jessica's reaction to learning that her boyfriend had been working with me on business planning that she knew nothing about added another layer of complexity to the family dynamics that were being transformed by these revelations. Her expression showed hurt that both her sister and her boyfriend had been involved in significant decisions that affected her family without including her in the discussion. The emotional complexity of the situation was intensified by the realization that my actions, while strategically sound and ultimately beneficial, had required excluding family members from decisions that affected their lives and relationships. The secrecy that had been necessary to ensure successful implementation of the acquisition had created feelings of betrayal and confusion that would need to be addressed as we moved forward. The gathering crowd of guests, employees, and family members was creating an increasingly complex social dynamic as people tried to understand their relationships to the new business structure and family hierarchy that I had just announced. The public nature of the revelation was serving my strategic objectives of ensuring transparency and community support, but it was also creating pressure on everyone involved to manage their emotional reactions in front of an audience. The next phase of the evening would determine whether my acquisition and restructuring plan would be accepted and supported by the people whose cooperation was essential for successful implementation, or whether the emotional and relational complications would undermine the business benefits that I had worked so hard to achieve. The silence that had settled over our gathering was broken by an unexpected voice from the crowd. Mrs. Patterson, who had been a loyal customer at the original Golden Phoenix location for over 15 years, stepped forward with the kind of determined expression that indicated she had something important to say regardless of the family dynamics unfolding before her. Sarah, if what you're saying is true, then you've just saved the place where my book club has met every Tuesday for the past decade, she said, her voice carrying genuine emotion and gratitude. We've all noticed that things seemed different lately, and several of us were worried that Golden Phoenix might be closing. If you've prevented that from happening, then our entire community owes you a debt of gratitude. Her words created a ripple of murmured agreement among the other longtime customers who were present at the celebration. These were people who had celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and business meetings at our restaurants, who had brought their children and grandchildren to experience authentic Taiwanese cuisine, and who considered Golden Phoenix to be an integral part of their community's cultural landscape. The customer support provided immediate validation for my decision to make the announcement publicly rather than handling it as a private family matter. These were the people whose loyalty and patronage would ultimately determine whether the restructuring plan succeeded, and their enthusiastic response demonstrated that the community valued what we had built and wanted to see it continue thriving. Dad's expression during Miss Patterson's comments showed the beginning of a shift from anger and confusion toward recognition that my intervention had preserved something that extended far beyond our family's financial interest. His pride in the community relationships he had built over 3 decades was evident, and the realization that these relationships had been protected rather than disrupted by my acquisition was clearly affecting his perspective on the situation. Patterson, you and your book club members will always be welcome at Golden Phoenix, I responded, recognizing the importance of acknowledging longtime customers while reinforcing the continuity message that was essential for maintaining community support. The improvements we're implementing will enhance your dining experience while preserving the authentic atmosphere and traditional recipes that have made Tuesday meetings so special for your group. The mention of preserving traditional recipes while implementing improvements addressed one of the primary concerns that I knew would emerge from both customers and employees who valued the authentic character that differentiated Golden Phoenix from other Asian restaurants in Sacramento. The balance between modernization and tradition would be crucial for successful implementation of the restructuring plan. Thomas Liu's voice emerged from the group of employees who had gathered to witness this unprecedented family and business revelation. "Sarah, I want everyone here to know that the plans we've been developing will make Golden Phoenix even better than it's ever been," he said, his words carrying the authority of someone who had been instrumental in creating our restaurant's reputation for culinary excellence. "The new equipment and standardized procedures will help us maintain consistency across all locations while reducing waste and improving efficiency." His endorsement provided crucial credibility for the operational aspects of my restructuring plan, particularly among family members and employees who might have been skeptical about changes imposed by someone without direct restaurant experience. Thomas's 20-year tenure with our family and his respected position within the culinary community made his support invaluable for gaining acceptance from other staff members. The employee reactions were mixed but generally positive, reflecting both relief that their jobs were secure and excitement about the improvements and opportunities that the restructuring would provide. Several longtime servers and kitchen staff members approached me with expressions of gratitude and curiosity about how the changes would affect their daily work and advancement prospects. "Sarah, does this mean we'll finally get the point-of-sale system that can track inventory properly?" asked Maria Santos, who had been working as a server at the Elk Grove location for 8 years and had frequently complained about the inefficient ordering and billing systems that created customer service problems. "Yes, Maria, the technology upgrades are the first priority in our implementation timeline," I replied, grateful for the opportunity to discuss specific improvements that would address long-standing employee frustration. "The new system will not only improve inventory tracking but also provide better table management, customer preference records, and tip distribution tracking that will make your job easier and more efficient." The enthusiasm that Maria and several other employees showed for these technological improvements demonstrated that staff members had been aware of operational problems and eager for solutions, even if they hadn't understood the financial pressures that had prevented previous upgrades. Their positive response suggested that employee adoption of the changes would be smooth and enthusiastic rather than resistant. Jessica's emotional processing of the evening's revelations was clearly complex and ongoing. Her initial hurt about being excluded from major family decisions was evolving into curiosity about the specific changes that would affect her role at the restaurant and her relationship with David, whose position in the business hierarchy had suddenly become much more significant than either of them had realized. "Sarah, I need to understand what this means for me," Jessica said, approaching me with the kind of careful vulnerability that indicated she was seeking reassurance about her place in the family business while also trying to process the implications for her personal relationship. "I've been working at Golden Phoenix since I was 17, and I thought I understood how everything worked. Now I find out that my boyfriend is apparently some kind of management trainee and my sister owns the whole company." Her comment about thinking she understood how everything worked reflected the broader family dynamic that had contributed to the crisis situation in the first place. Dad's reluctance to share detailed business information with family members had left everyone operating with incomplete understanding of both the challenges and opportunities facing Golden Phoenix. "Jessica, your role in the family business will expand significantly under the restructuring plan," I explained, recognizing that she deserved both reassurance and specific information about her future opportunity. "Your natural talent for customer relations and your understanding of our operational culture make you ideal for a management position that would involve training new staff and developing customer service standards across all locations." The mention of expanded responsibilities and management opportunities clearly pleased Jessica, whose face showed growing excitement about professional development possibilities she hadn't previously considered. Her teaching background had given her skills in training and communication that would translate well to restaurant management, and her long-standing relationships with both employees and customers provided valuable foundation for leadership roles. David's situation was perhaps the most delicate to address, given that his employment had been influenced by my strategic planning without his knowledge, and his personal relationship with Jessica added complexity to professional discussions about his role and advancement. His expression showed continued confusion about how to navigate the intersection of his romantic and professional relationships within our family business. David, I want to be completely transparent with you about how your hiring and advancement have been handled, I said, recognizing that clarity about past decisions would be essential for building trust and ensuring his continued commitment to the business. When the supervisor position became available, I recommended you to the hiring manager based on your qualifications and potential, but your performance and advancement since then have been entirely based on your own merit and capability. This explanation seemed to provide relief to both David and Jessica, who had clearly been concerned about whether his success had been artificially influenced by family connections rather than earned through professional competence. The distinction between creating opportunities and guaranteeing outcomes was important for maintaining his sense of professional accomplishment and Jessica's confidence in his ability. The broader group of party guests was gradually organizing itself into smaller conversations as people processed the evening's revelations and their implications for the community relationships and business connections that had brought them to Mom's celebration. The initial shock was giving way to discussions about what the changes might mean for future dining experiences, employment opportunities, and community involvement. Mom had been observing the various reactions and conversations with the kind of thoughtful attention that she brought to understanding complex social situations. Her role as the family mediator and emotional anchor was clearly being tested by revelations that challenged everyone's understanding of our relationships and priorities, but her expression showed growing appreciation for the positive outcomes that my intervention had achieved. Sarah, I think I'm beginning to understand why you've been so busy and distracted lately, Mom said, approaching me with the kind of gentle smile that indicated forgiveness and pride rather than anger about the secrecy that had been necessary for successful implementation. This must have been an enormous undertaking, and you've been carrying the responsibility alone while we criticized you for not being present enough for family activity. Her recognition of the emotional burden I had been carrying during the months of preparation was both validating and relieving. The isolation that had been necessary to maintain secrecy about the acquisition had been one of the most difficult aspects of the entire process, particularly when family members interpreted my behavior as evidence of misplaced priorities, rather than understanding the protective actions I was taking on their behalf. The hardest part was listening to Dad's concerns about the business challenges while knowing that I was working on solutions he would never have imagined. I admitted, grateful for the opportunity to share some of the emotional complexity that had characterized recent months. Every family dinner where he mentioned stress about supplier payments or customer complaints was a reminder that I needed to work faster to implement the restructuring before the situation became irreversible. Dad's reaction to learning about my awareness of specific business problems was clearly profound. His face showed the kind of stunned recognition that comes from realizing that someone you thought was disengaged had actually been paying closer attention than you were comfortable with. The revelation that I had been monitoring his struggles while secretly working to solve them created a complex mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. Sarah, I owe you an apology for assuming that your career success had made you indifferent to family concerns, Dad said, his voice carrying the kind of humility that I had rarely heard from him during our adult relationship. I completely misunderstood your motivations and capabilities, and I let my pride prevent me from recognizing that you might be able to help with problems I was struggling to solve alone. His apology represented a fundamental shift in our relationship dynamic that extended far beyond the immediate business situation. For the first time in my adult life, Dad was acknowledging my expertise and judgment as valuable rather than dismissing my perspectives as irrelevant to his areas of responsibility. The emotional significance of this recognition was almost as important as the business outcomes I had achieved. The party atmosphere was gradually returning as people adapted to the new information and began focusing on the positive implications of the evening's revelation. The musician's mom had hired reviewed playing, and conversations shifted from shocked reactions to enthusiastic discussions about future possibilities and improvements that the restructuring would enable. Several longtime customers approached me throughout the remainder of the evening with suggestions and feedback about their experiences at Golden Phoenix location. Their insights provided valuable input for the customer service improvements that were part of the operational restructuring, and their enthusiasm for being included in planning discussions demonstrated the community engagement that would support successful implementation. The most significant conversation during this phase came from Dr. Richardson, who owned a successful medical practice and had been considering investing in restaurant properties as part of his retirement portfolio. His interest in the business model and financial projections behind my acquisition provided an unexpected opportunity to discuss potential expansion strategies that could accelerate our growth timeline. "Sarah, I'd be very interested in learning more about your restructuring plan and whether there might be opportunities for additional investment that could support faster expansion," Richardson said, his comment indicating that the evening's revelations had created business development possibilities I hadn't anticipated. "The combination of traditional recipes and modern operations you're describing sounds like exactly the kind of concept that could succeed in other markets throughout Northern California." His suggestion about expansion into other markets aligned perfectly with the long-term growth strategies I had included in my business plan, but with a timeline that assumed gradual development as the existing locations achieved optimal performance. The possibility of accelerating expansion through additional investment could significantly enhance the value creation potential of the restructuring. The conversation with Dr. Richardson also demonstrated that my public announcement had positioned Golden Phoenix as a serious business investment opportunity, rather than simply a family restaurant group. The professional approach to acquisition and restructuring was attracting attention from sophisticated investors who recognized the potential for substantial returns through systematic operational improvements and strategic growth. As the evening progressed, the family dynamics continued to evolve as everyone adapted to their new roles and relationships within the restructured business and family hierarchy. The initial shock and confusion were giving way to excitement about possibilities and opportunities that hadn't existed under the previous operational constraints. Jessica's enthusiasm for her expanded role was particularly gratifying, as she began discussing ideas for customer service training programs and employee development initiatives that would enhance the working environment while improving operational efficiency. Her teaching background was clearly influencing her approach to management challenges in ways that would benefit both staff members and business performance. David's adjustment to learning about his actual position within the company hierarchy was remarkably smooth, reflecting both his professional adaptability and his genuine commitment to restaurant excellence. His suggestions for inventory management improvements and staff scheduling optimization demonstrated that his advancement had indeed been merited by his capabilities rather than influenced by family connection. The employee reactions throughout the evening confirmed that the restructuring plan had anticipated and addressed many of the operational frustrations that had been affecting morale and performance. The promise of better equipment, improved training, and advancement opportunities created enthusiasm that would support successful implementation of the changes. Thomas Liu's leadership among the kitchen staff was particularly valuable, as his endorsement of the menu development and standardization initiatives encouraged other employees to embrace changes that might otherwise have been viewed with suspicion. His respect within the culinary community also provided credibility for our commitment to maintaining authentic traditional recipes while improving operational efficiency. The customer feedback I received during the celebration provided insights that would enhance the market positioning strategies included in the restructuring plan. The community's attachment to Golden Phoenix as a cultural institution created opportunities for marketing approaches that emphasized heritage and tradition while showcasing modern improvements and expanded offerings. Mom's adjustment to the evening's revelations was perhaps the most heartwarming aspect of the entire experience. Her initial concern about family harmony had evolved into pride in what I had accomplished and excitement about the business security and growth potential that the restructuring provided.
Her role as the emotional center of our family was being enhanced rather than threatened by the change. The most significant moment of validation came when Dad approached me near the end of the celebration with an expression that combined gratitude, respect, and what appeared to be genuine affection for the first time in years. Our relationship had been strained by his inability to recognize my professional capabilities and my frustration with his resistance to modernization, but the evening's events had transformed our dynamic completely. "Sarah, I want you to know that what you've accomplished tonight goes far beyond saving a business," Dad said, his voice carrying emotional weight that reflected the magnitude of what had transpired. "You've preserved 30 years of work that your mother and I put into building something meaningful for our community. More importantly, you've shown me that I raised a daughter who has the strength and wisdom to take care of her family, even when they don't understand that they need help." His recognition of my actions as care for the family, rather than business maneuvering, represented the emotional reconciliation that I had hoped the acquisition might eventually achieve. The professional success was satisfying, but the restoration of our family relationship was the outcome that would provide lasting personal fulfillment. The practical implications of the evening's revelations would require ongoing attention and careful management as we implemented the operational changes and navigated the new family and business dynamic. However, the foundation of community support, employee enthusiasm, and family unity that had emerged during Mom's birthday celebration provided confidence that the restructuring would succeed. The financial projections that had motivated my acquisition were conservative estimates based on industry benchmarks and operational improvements that had proven successful in similar situations. The level of community engagement and employee commitment that became apparent during the evening suggested that our actual performance might exceed even my optimistic scenario. The technology implementations that would begin the following week were designed to provide immediate improvements in operational efficiency, while creating data collection capabilities that would support ongoing optimization of business process. The employee training programs would ensure that staff members could utilize new systems effectively, while maintaining the customer service standards that had built our reputation. The menu development initiatives that Thomas and I had planned would introduce innovative dishes that appealed to contemporary tastes, while preserving the traditional recipes that formed the foundation of our culinary identity. The balance between innovation and authenticity would be crucial for attracting new customers while retaining the loyalty of longtime patrons. The marketing strategies that would launch alongside the operational improvements were designed to reposition Golden Phoenix as both a cultural institution and a modern dining destination. The combination of heritage storytelling and contemporary value propositions would differentiate us from competitors while building on the community relationships that had sustained us through challenging periods. As the celebration wound down and guests began departing, the congratulations and expressions of support I received confirmed that the evening's revelations had strengthened rather than damaged our relationships within the community. The transparency about business challenges and solutions had enhanced rather than undermined confidence in our long-term viability. The family conversations that continued after most guests had left focused on practical planning for implementing the changes while maintaining the positive momentum that the evening had generated. Dad's enthusiasm for learning about modern business practices was particularly encouraging, as his experience and community relationships would be valuable assets for successful execution of the restructuring plan. Jessica's excitement about her expanded role was matched by her curiosity about the management training and professional development opportunities that would be available. Her commitment to excellence and her understanding of our operational culture made her ideal for leading the customer service initiatives that were central to our competitive strategy. David's professionalism and adaptability had been demonstrated throughout the evening's complex revelations, confirming that his advancement potential justified the expanded responsibilities that were planned for his role. His relationship with Jessica added personal motivation to his professional commitment, creating alignment between family and business objectives. The evening that had begun with Dad's attempt to exclude me from Mom's birthday celebration concluded with family unity and business security that exceeded my most optimistic expectations when I first began developing the acquisition strategy. The public setting that I had initially chosen for strategic reasons had proven to be emotionally powerful as well, creating community witness to our family's transformation and commitment to continued excellence. The months of preparation and strategic planning had achieved their intended objectives, while also producing unexpected benefits in terms of family relationships and community engagement. The systematic approach to problem solving that had characterized my professional career had proven equally effective for addressing personal and family challenges that required comprehensive solutions. The success of the acquisition and the positive response to the restructuring plan validated my conviction that business expertise could be applied effectively to preserve and enhance family legacies while creating opportunities for growth and development. The integration of professional capabilities with personal values had produced outcomes that satisfied both financial objectives and emotional needs. As we cleaned up after the celebration and reflected on the evening's events, the transformation in our family dynamic was evident in the easy conversation and collaborative planning that characterized our interaction. The tension and misunderstanding that had marked our relationships during recent months had been replaced by mutual respect and shared commitment to building on what we had accomplished together. The future of Golden Phoenix Restaurant Group was now secure, with financial stability, operational efficiency, and family leadership that combined traditional values with modern business practice. The foundation for sustainable growth and community service had been established through careful planning and strategic implementation that honored our heritage while embracing innovation and opportunity. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.